Welcome to another serving of California Triathlon Soup. California Triathlon Soup is 2 parts triathlon, 1 part culture, and a dash of silly. The guests are top notch as a counterweight to my sheer lack of talent, and even our production team's mad skills might not be enough to account for those. Today's guest is John Duquette, who is the president of Blueseventy. Welcome, John.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Is president the right term? Owner? What is maybe a little bit of history of Blueseventy and how you've gotten involved?
Sure. So Blueseventy actually started in New Zealand way back in 1993 as Ironman Wetsuits. We were the second longest running Ironman sponsor to Timex watches in partnership with Ironman, which obviously was a much different animal back in the late 90s and early 2000s. The company grew significantly, grew worldwide, as a matter of fact, all from those little seeds in New Zealand. At the end of the 2005 season, it became clear that being named Ironman Wetsuits was keeping us from developing goggles, bags, apparel, things that other people had the Ironman license for. So we changed the name to Blueseventy at the end of 2005. Blueseventy being that 70% of the world is covered in water, and we are a swimming company. Triathletes think of us as a triathlon company, which is fair because about 2/3 of our business is in triathlon wetsuits and accessories. But we also have a very healthy pool competition business, the little super tight, super expensive suits that the kids and the college swimmers wear for competition. And we've even won a couple Olympic medals in our suits, which, were obviously very exciting times when they happened. I was an age group triathlete through the early 2000s here in Seattle, where Blueseventy is based. And I was working at a local running store, just racing and working. And in 2007, they approached me about joining the team at Blueseventy, and it was kind of time for me to move on. As an athlete, I felt like I'd accomplished everything I could, as underwhelming as it was, and joined the team in '07. In 2015, I was appointed to CEO, and then I actually had the opportunity to buy the company at the beginning of 2017. So I've been the owner for 2 years, and it's certainly been an interesting ride. Everything about the sport is different now than it was 10 years ago, 12 years ago when I started. The people doing the sport, the distances they're doing, the amount of races, and of course, from a business perspective, the sales channels are different. Where people are buying their suits, what suits they're buying. It's really interesting times right now as sales channels change and the look and face of triathlon changes. But it's just such a wonderful industry to be part of. I really feel like I've won the lottery. I mean, I knew I wanted to be in this business. That meant working for $8 an hour at a shoe store right after I got out of college, hardly being able to pay my bills, taking every extra hour I could get at the store, knowing that if I could add 2 hours onto my shift, that's $16 before taxes. And, that's an extra trip to the grocery store. I feel very fortunate that I stuck it out. And now, I get to travel all over the world talking to healthy people and going to events. It's been great.
And you're based in Seattle, and I start instantly thinking about all the technology distribution, Amazon. When you talk about sales channels online, is that a growing area for you?
Yeah, this will be the first year we do more sales online direct to consumer than we do through retailers. Now, having worked in specialty retail for 7 years, I love specialty retailers. I love bike shops and running shops and tri shops. And unfortunately, not everybody does, because at some point in the last 5 years or so, a lot of people stopped visiting their local shop. And it's just, I get it. It's so much easier to click and buy. But we've stuck with the retailers best we can. I keep coming up with innovative sales programs and working with retailers on a one-on-one basis to try to keep as much of their triathlon business as they can. But the fact of the matter is, people like to buy their stuff online. They like to have it delivered to them, try it on. If they don't like it, they send it back. And so one of the really kind of interesting things in this business is sitting here and running analytics on returns and exchanges and what mistakes are people making when they're buying. Do we need to adjust our size chart? Do we need to come up with better videos? What are we going to do to cut down on a return rate to educate consumers before they make the purchase on what product they need and what size they need to buy?
When to that point, when I lived in Los Angeles, I would run at Griffith Park every Thursday, and there's a great little shoe store there, Runner Circle, right on Los Feliz. And I would go in and get all my shoes there, and we'd have a Thursday run. And I think at some point I would look at folks who would be there every Thursday and say, I know that the pair of shoes you're wearing is not offered at this store. So this store puts out pretty well for you. And as a return, you don't give back to them. With that stated, I also have size 14 shoes and now don't live in Los Angeles. There's just no way that any local shoe store in a 60-mile radius from where I live is going to have a selection of products. So yeah, it's a lot easier to buy online, have it shipped to you, try it, and if you don't like it, return it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. But what about buying new nutrition? What about buying a new running hat, socks? I always come back to bikes because besides swimming, I'm passionate about cycling. And I get when you can't find that one particular spacer for your Di2 derailleur. Yeah, you should go online because your local mom and pop bike shop isn't going to carry every little bit for every bike. But generally speaking, I mean, if you're just looking for a jersey or you're looking to get a new box of Cliff Bars, I would strongly encourage people to visit their local retailer. They're
Sure.
part of the community. They're the ones going to races, doing tech support. They're the ones when your bike's making a creaking and you're at bike check-in. I can't figure out why this is creaking or this isn't shifting right. They're the ones that are taking care of that for you. They're the ones when you're on your third pair of shoes you bought online and it doesn't work and you finally go into the shop and say, why can't I get rid of this plantar fasciitis? They're the ones talking you through how to treat it.
For sure.
They're very, very valuable. We're losing a lot of them, but I hope enough stick around that they're a resource for me and for my kids.
Yeah, of course. So if you have a typical wetsuit company has, in a retail store, the local bike shop or triathlon shop, what does that mean in terms of if I go to a manufacturer's site? Educate us here because we have a lot of beginners say, well, this is a Blueseventy shop. Do they have the entire range of your products, men's, women's, stacked deep? Do they have multiple different wetsuit companies? I mean, I've been in retail before, and typically there's the how much to stock. When do they go from a supporting partner to more of, yeah, we carry it, but not really? Like, how do you make those decisions?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. Most of our strong retailers will carry 2 to 3 lines from us. I think you need a minimum of two. I mean, we do 4 levels of suit basically, and I think you need two, good, better, best type situation. And I encourage stores that have a healthy triathlon business to carry more than one wetsuit brand because at the end of the day, everybody's using the same materials, whether it's us or Roka or 2XU or Zoot or any of those guys. We all have access to the same materials, and it's a matter of the patterns and the designs, and they're going to fit different body shapes differently. And I will say that there are many shops that only carry Blueseventy because we fit the widest range of body types. But in the same way, you don't try on just one pair of running shoes when you go to a store. You want to try on several different wetsuits and see which one fits your particular body better.
Let's cover a little bit of the product differences later. In terms of your support of the industry, Blueseventy has been around a really long time. What do you do in terms of support of professional athletes or races, teams, things like that?
Pro athletes is something I get really excited about, but it also makes me frustrated sometimes because I wish we could do more. At the end of the day, you've only got so much money to give, and there's so many great athletes out there. I mean, I don't want to forget anybody because we have dozens of athletes that we work with, but the bigger names that we work with, Lionel Sanders, Heather Jackson, Sarah Haskins, Eric Lagerstrom, Braden Curry, Mike Phillips, Jeannie Seymour, and Justin Metzler, Leslie Smith, Jason West, who might make it to the Olympics. I mean, we're looking at a lot of high-level podium athletes, and then we give out a lot of product to aspiring pros. We give out significant discounts to aspiring pros and top age groupers, and marketing is part of it, but of course, just giving back to the sport and supporting people who are following their passion is probably the main reason that we do it. They're also very, very important for product testing too. I mean, right now, Lionel's got a couple of our products that are going to be released, and most likely 2021, but he's testing them in his indoor pool up there in Canada. Eric Lagerstrom has been testing some wetsuit concepts for us for a couple years. Braden Curry's got a concept suit of ours. So to us, it's not so much about scientists and lab coats with clipboards in a flume test or something as much as it is getting it on world-class athletes and getting their feedback both in terms of performance and comfort.
And when you get your bang for the buck on a sponsorship, you're obviously looking for somebody that's actively promoting your product, representing it on social media. How do you make a selection in terms of if you were, as an example, an aspiring pro, not a name like Heather Jackson or Lionel Sanders, how would somebody make an approach to Blueseventy?
I don't care about your race results nearly as much as I care whether you're giving back to your community. If you're visible in your community, are you part of a club? Are you coaching? Do you work at a retailer? Are you a nice guy? I mean, often race directors or retailers will approach me and say, hey, this girl, this guy, they're always helping clean up after the race. They won the race, but they hang out, and then they're the ones helping me fold up the bike racks at the end of it. They came out to this club night. Nobody really asked them to. They just showed up and helped fit people in wetsuits or talk about open water swimming. Those are the kinds of people we definitely like to get behind. Of course, social media is the other part. Eric Lagerström is a great example. He's gifted and he's got a passion for it, but Eric's constantly doing really cool projects that involve video and photo shoots, and he's sending us the results. Those are the kinds of things. I honestly don't care if you won Ironman Texas if, I only hear from you twice a year when you need product. That's no good. We like it to be a two-way street. We like any athlete of any level, age group or top pro, aspiring pro. We like to hear from them, and we like them to be giving back to the triathlon community.
Well, speaking of giving back to the triathlon community, CalTri Events, we have our 3 fall races to wrap up the season, and Blueseventy is providing all the swim caps for these races. So whether it's California Triathlon Oxnard, a new race, or LA, or returning to Newport Dunes, all the swim caps will have Blueseventy on one side and CalTri Events on the other side. So we just want to say thank you for that contribution. It means a lot.
Just this morning when I came into the office, I saw the mock-up of that swim cap, and it looks awesome. We do a lot of swim caps, and that's probably my favorite one I've ever seen. Your logo looks great just in general, and then the color combination that we went with just looks phenomenal. We all in the office agreed we were going to order a couple extra to keep for ourselves.
Well, fantastic. Hopefully you'll send us some photos of those. We looked in terms of broadly earlier this year. We think that Triathlete Magazine, they did a really nice article about racing, and our group is all about affordable and accessible. And we can go into great detail. You and I have had a number of conversations about that. And what we're finding is that making the races more affordable and accessible is decreasing the average age, is increasing participation. So for instance, at our Newport Dunes race in November, 20% of our athletes are 29 or below, and our average age is 38. And the New York Times was kind enough a couple of weeks ago to ask us input on where we saw the market, and we provided that. And they're looking at races now where when I started, I was in the 35 to 39 age group, and that was one of the largest. And then 40 to 44 was the largest. Then 45 to 49 is the largest. And in some cases, there's some races where 50 to 54 is the largest. Do you have any advice to race directors, the community, et cetera, out there relative to basically backfilling all those folks who are going to be leaving the sport with newer folks? Do you do anything in particular in that area?
We support grassroots races best we can. We don't have a big Ironman sponsorship, but I think a great example is there's a local event company here in Seattle called Raise the Bar Events. It's great because you show up at one of those events and there are so many bikes that didn't cost $1,500, $1,500 and below. There's a lot of straight bar bikes. And if you only read Slow Twitch or even to some degree Triathlete Magazine, any of the triathlon media focuses on Ironman racing. And that is guys with shaved legs and bikes that cost $5,000 up. And it's really, really intimidating to people who are thinking of maybe trying a triathlon. And then you pick up Triathlete and you see all the bikes cost $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $10,000. So, we really like the Raise the Bar events. We like your events, and we like doing the caps and doing the clinics and just trying to be part of that community and encouraging people to give the sport a try. And it's not about your placing. It's about being out there and the participation. I mean, it sounds cliche, but the older I get, the more I realize cliches are there for a reason. I mean, it truly is a wonderful sport to be part of, and it'll raise anybody's self-esteem, make them happier, and it's pretty darn addicting.
Absolutely. And we could cover that for years. And by the way, for everybody listening, at the end of this podcast, we're going to put a promotional deal on that combines CalTri Events and Blueseventy. And that will be a very difficult deal to pass up for athletes. But I'm going to tease you on that. Don't forward ahead. So I'm an engineer, and the most important part I always love to talk about and hear about is the scope of the products that you offer and the product differences. You started talking about different products in test, your product roadmap 2-3 years out. But in general terms, I mean, you mentioned it earlier, you think you have a product line that covers covers the widest area of shapes and sizes. Tell us about your product in terms of the entry-level products, the higher-end products, the scope of the products that you have, maybe even to the point of we really sell a lot of this type of product over this type of product. I mean, I'd be interested.
Sure. I'll start with wetsuits because that's the primary product that we sell. We do, as I said earlier, 4 wetsuit ranges. Our cheapest wetsuit is $250, and our most expensive wetsuit, the iconic Helix, is $850. Generally speaking, the more you spend on a wetsuit, the better rubber you're going to get, which will make it more flexible and more buoyant. The nicer lining that wetsuit is going to have, which will make it more flexible and also feel better against your body, which means sliding against your skin easier. And then the more detailed the paneling is going to be, which is comfort and performance. So our sprint suit, which is a very beginner-friendly price point at $250, it's a great suit. It's full Yamamoto neoprene, which is a premium Japanese neoprene supplier, but it's not as detailed in the paneling. I mean, we've got to keep the price down, and every time you put a new panel in, that costs a little bit more money at manufacturing. So interestingly, another thing we've noticed though with the sprint is it's the most returned suits, and it's because beginners are buying that suit. They've never put on a triathlon wetsuit before. They get it on and, oh my God, it feels too tight. I need a bigger size. So as we developed that suit, we're not looking to add performance features. We're looking to add comfort features. What can we do around the neck to make it not as tight? Do we grade it just a little bit heavier weight so people don't feel as constricted in it? If you jump from that $250 suit of the Sprint to the $350 Fusion, you're getting thicker neoprene, so the suit's going to float better. You're getting that nicer lining that slides against your skin easier, so it's easier to put on. And you're getting a lot more detailed paneling, so it's not quite as constrictive in the neck. It feels a little bit looser. It feels a little bit looser in the chest, and then the arms are a bit more flexible too. I feel strongly that the sweet spot in our range is our reaction suits. We do a sleeveless version at $300, and we do a full suit at $550. And then you're getting into the really premium materials. You're getting very, very flexible and very durable rubber. You're getting the very top of the line liner, so the suit just goes on so much easier than the lower price suits. And that's the kind of suit, when you get to the reaction range, if you take care of them, those suits will last you as long as you need them to. I use cycling analogies a lot, and if you're familiar with the Shimano range, Ultegra is a great performing group set made by Shimano. It doesn't have the price tag that Dura-Ace has, but Ultegra will last forever, and it'll perform for you for a long time with minimal maintenance. And I've considered our reaction the Ultegra level suit.
Not to interrupt, but would your Sprint product be more like 105?
Well, I would consider the Fusion 105 and then the Sprint Tiagra. It'll get you through the race, but honestly, if you're a triathlon enthusiast and you're going to be doing a few triathlons a year and some open water swim training, you should go for the Fusion. You're going to be more comfortable and faster every single time you swim in the suit, and I think it's worth the investment.
Well, that's one question that we get all the time. So you put on a suit, how many seconds is it going to make me faster? Do you guys have research like that?
It changes for everybody, right? If you're an Olympic level swimmer who has impeccable body position in the water, it's not going to benefit you nearly as much as somebody like me. I'm happy if I'm swimming 125 pace, and I swim easily 4 or 5 seconds faster per 100 in a wetsuit. And then as you fatigue, it helps more and more, right? If I'm swimming sets of 50s, it's not as big of a deal. But if I were swimming 500s or just out on a 2-mile open water swim, the second half of that really long swim is when I would get tired, my legs would sink behind me, and the wetsuit would keep me much, much more streamlined and therefore faster.
So in terms of those aren't the only products that you offer. I have right here bags, mesh bags, goggles, swimsuits. You offer a lot of different products.
Yeah, just let me throw the plug in on the Helix. It is our pro level suit. It's the first suit out of the water at tons and tons of races. The no stone left unturned. How do we make the fastest and most comfortable wetsuit? We don't feel the need to do multiple very high-end suits like some companies, because we think that the Helix has the very best possible combination of flexibility and buoyancy. And it's iconic for the blue shoulders. You see them at the start of swims and swim exits all over the world. It's just a wonderful suit. That being said, our thermal accessories, the skull caps, the socks, and the gloves are extremely popular for people who swim in cold water. Our goggles, I think, are highly underrated, and part of that is our fault for not talking about them enough. We agonize over goggle development. We launched a new goggle called the Contour this year that took us about 2 years to get right. We did a lot of testing with a lot of different athletes and got their feedback. And it's hard, right? Because at some point, you only need so many goggles before you kind of end up repeating yourself. So we do soft lens goggles like our Hydrovision, which actually have have a soft frame that'll flex around the side of your face and basically fits over the top of your eye socket. And then we do hard lens goggles that will fit inside of your eye socket. And goggles are a really difficult thing to purchase without trying them on. Once again, it's like running shoes. Everybody's face is a little bit different and everybody has a little bit different preference. So if we have somebody on online chat or somebody calls us and wants goggle advice, there's a list of questions we go through. Is there a goggle now that you like or you don't like? And then what do you like or not like about that? Do you prefer goggles that fit over the eye socket or inside of your eye socket? Do you have particularly long eyelashes? Like my eyelashes are on the longer side, and our Hydrovision, which is our top selling goggle, doesn't work for me because it fogs up on me because my eyelashes hit it. Outside of the goggles and the accessories, we have a couple really nice backpacks. We've got a new one coming for 2020 that I'm really excited about. I personally developed that one with the factory. The swimwear is just a fun thing that we work on, and we're working with a new supplier out of California. Now, a few of your team members ordered that custom swimwear from us, and I had reached out to each of them. We had unforeseen manufacturing issues, and I believe we resolved that issue with each of those customers. But as we go forward, you are going to see a lot of nice, cool swimwear projects out of us. Those will be made in the USA out of recycled fabrics.
The only advice I have on swimwear is the Eurocut should be banned for any man over 40 years old. I mean, is that part of your business plan, or?
We believe in freedom. So if the guy's got the cojones to wear it, I'm all for it. They're all ex-swimmers, right? They've been wearing that same suit since they were 15, and they like to rock them. God bless them.
They definitely have the cojones. We know. We can tell. So in terms of differences, it's really hard to say, we do things differently. We try to add increased buoyancy here, or we believe in this. If you were to say, our niche in this space is X, what would that be if you could boil that down? Specific to wetsuits.
I think it comes down to comfort, honestly. I think our suits are as fast as any out there, but as we switch to a consumer direct model, it's great because we get to talk to so many more customers than we used to, and we get the feedback straight away. And nobody ever calls and says, I'm swimming too slow in this suit. They all say, this doesn't feel like the right size, it's too tight, it's not comfortable here, I'm getting chafing there. So as we develop our next product range, comfort is the number one issue. We've already tweaked our size chart. Kind of this old guard that I used to work with would defend it, say, no, the size chart is right, the customer is wrong. And, when you hear this, people with the same dimensions over and over say, this is too small, you say, you know what, let's adjust this size chart because it's clearly not correct and it needs to reflect our customer base. To sum it up for you, I think it's comfort more than anything else, and really real world products. Besides getting our pros to test them, I swim, a couple people in our office swim, and we get new samples in and we go swim in them and see how they feel. It's this very methodical process of FedExing suits to China and China FedExing suits back. And then we bring out the chalk or the marker and we make marks on it, and it just goes back and forth until we feel like we got it right.
When I buy a suit and it shows up, if it's, not the right size or I don't like it, I have 30 days to return it?
You have 30 days, yes.
And pretty much no questions asked.
Yeah, well, we're going to want to know. I mean, the first thing you're probably going to say is too tight, and we're going to want to know your height and weight, and we're going to know if you've worn a triathlon wetsuit before, because if you've never put on a wetsuit, it could be very intimidating, and there is some tightness, especially when you're out standing in dry land, that you might not experience in the water when you're horizontal. We want to make sure you put it on right, that you've got as much rubber as possible up high on the suit. So that starts in the crotch and making sure the suit is completely tight in the crotch, it's not sagging. And then any excess rubber in the upper body is up near the neck and the shoulders, and that your arm's not, getting pulled down by not putting the suit on properly. So we have a video that we used to like, and we've now decided it's not good enough. We've invested in-house in some studio equipment, and we've got a big list of videos we're going to be banging out in the next month here on how to really put on a suit properly. We predict roughly half the people who return suits just aren't putting the suit on correctly. And once again, when you're buying it in a retail store, you'd have somebody there telling you, but people aren't buying them in retail stores anymore. So the big focus for us is consumer education and making sure that they're buying the right suit the first time. Everybody wins. It's not just us cutting down on returns, it's a better customer experience.
Do you remember a retailer, Sports Chalet?
Yeah.
we were helping them with their product arrangement. And I remember going in and looking at some of the wetsuits they brought in. I can't even remember the brand, but I do remember that they had little white gloves with every wetsuit.
Mm-hmm.
I was sort of, a head scratcher at the time. I didn't know much about wetsuits. And it was like, well, you do that so you're not taking the nails and cutting the rubber when you put these things on. Is that typical?
Every single wetsuit that ships out of here has a pair of little white gloves in it.
I mean, I'm not, who knew?
Well, here's the deal. The rubber that's used in triathlon wetsuits is an amazing product. It's extremely flexible. The downside of that is it's on the fragile side, and there are different coatings you could put on the rubber to make it more durable. But at the end of the day, people need to use care. I mean, the most common thing you see in a triathlon wetsuit is a bunch of little crescent-shaped holes, and that's where people dug their fingernails into the suit. By putting on the white gloves before you put on your suit gives you the insurance against putting your fingernails through the suit. But, back in the day, I tore my wetsuit because I threw it in the back of my car with my bike and the chainring tore it. I mean, rubber does tear, and that's another thing we have to educate people on. Seams and zippers are a warranty issue, but a big tear in your neoprene, honestly, you did that. And we'll work with you to get it repaired or come to amicable resolution. But at the end of the day, people need to use care with their wetsuit, and the white gloves are a good start to that. That's the bulk of it, but it's also easier to slide your hand through. Just like we recommend people keep their socks on when they're putting on their wetsuit, because the socks will slide through any liner easier than your bare skin. Same thing with your hand. With the gloves on, you could poke through the sleeve of that wetsuit a lot easier.
Okay, those are great tips. And you also mentioned proper care. So I'm done my ocean swim. There's sand, it's wet. What would be proper care? What would be the Blueseventy proper care for that wetsuit so I can keep that for multiple seasons?
Well, I always say if you went swimming, you're going to take a shower. So bring the suit into the shower with you, rinse the inside, rinse the outside, and then turn it inside out and let it dry inside out, because the neoprene doesn't collect water, but that lining will collect a little bit of water. And the lining of the suit is nearly indestructible. All of the linings are very, very durable. So if it does brush against something sharp or somebody does grab it with their fingernails, they're not going to tear it. So best case is you're storing your suit inside out to protect that softer outer rubber. Hanging out of direct sunlight, I've actually seen suits melt together before in extremely hot environments where people had it hanging in the sun and the two sides of the suit, was folded over a deck and the two sides were touching each other and they actually melted together. I've only seen it once, but it definitely happened. So you want to keep it out of direct sunlight. You could hang it on a hanger or you could lay it out flat, whatever you want, until it's dry. And then you could hang it, or they come folded nicely and you could repeat on the same fold lines and store it that way.
I'm imagining the beginning of a race and you jump in the water and it's a water start. Does peeing in the wetsuit, does that void the warranty? Is that you just not ask any questions about that?
We don't ask questions about that. I think it's safe to assume that everybody goes through that same ritual. Well, we used to have a poster. Actually, I thought of it one night, and it was always number one, never number two.
I was at a race in Northern California, and you get in the water, and everybody was really wired up. You could just see the tight faces, and nobody was smiling, and we're waiting for our wave to be called. And I sort of let out that feels good. And a couple of people look, and I said, yeah, I probably should pee too. And that kind of got people less crotchety.
Yeah, loosen up a little bit.
I advise all the 7 people that are listening to use that at their next race and see if they can make some friends.
There you go. At the very least, they'll have some room at the swim start.
Absolutely. So you mentioned a little bit about some of your products are out being tested 2020, 2021. What are some of the things that you're looking at? And is it materials? Is it buoyancy? What are some of the things that you think still need to be discovered?
I really think it's comfort in all parts, but especially in the high end, it's doing a better job of matching your swim stroke and your body position in the water. I mean, we had a huge breakthrough in 2015 when we developed a new helix and new reaction with a panel that goes down the side of thinner rubber. So the old way to make a wetsuit was just a rubber tube with a seam in the back. And now we have more intricate paneling that allows the suit to flex front to back. So when you're sliding your leg in there, it's not just a really stiff rubber tube. The suit flexes out and then the shape of the panel is contoured to your body. It also aids in rotation back and forth because the outside of the suit isn't quite as buoyant as the inside of the suit, which makes it a little bit easier to rotate. So kind of really looking at the shape of those panels and seeing if we can do a better job of matching the shape of the panels to the swim stroke. And that's kind of in the reaction helix range and the more beginner level range. It's 100% comfort. Is our neck as comfortable as it possibly can be without leaking water? People don't understand that often when you're going for comfort, you're sacrificing. So, that person who should be in a medium suit, who's just adamant they need a large, they're going to be leaking water into that suit, and the water is going to pool up in there. And the worst case scenario, it slows them down, and they might say, well, I don't care how fast I am. And that's fair, but there's a comfort issue to that too. So what comfort characteristics in the Sprint and in the Fusion can we add that still won't allow water to leak in? I think a lot of it comes down to the neck, and I think a lot of it comes down to the shape of the chest.
So you had mentioned beginning swimmers. The swim is where we see the most reticence to participate. Any advice to beginning swimmers that you'd like to share?
Yeah, first, attend a coached workout. I mean, there's so many different opportunities now. I know you guys are putting on those great clinics. If you can't make one of those, there's so many workouts, especially down there in California, whether it's open water, whether it's pool, because it's such a technique-based sport that just the subtlest change you make to your swim stroke can add significant speed. And I know not everybody's trying to win the race, but really, who doesn't want free speed? I mean, even if you're a back-of-the-pack swimmer, just something to get you out of the water faster. The other big thing that one of the guys in our office, who's also a coach, said when I asked him this is, don't just go out and swim. Don't go to the pool and say, well, the race has an 800-yard swim, so I'm going to swim 1,000 yards because then I know I can swim 800. Learn what swim workouts are structured like and do some real actual swim workouts. I mean, you could just Google swim workouts, and it's not go swim 1,000 yards. It's swim 5 100s or 2 200s or whatever it is, and break it up into intervals, because it's going to allow you to learn how to swim fast. And then at the end of the day, you're bridging all those workouts together. It's just like, if you're training for a marathon, you don't just go out and run 26 miles. You do a lot of shorter runs, you do your speed work, and all that culminates into your marathon fitness.
And John, we have over 50 swim workouts at californiatriathlon.org that are just that, shorter, anything typically up from really short workouts to 3,000 yards, free and available to any and all.
That's such a great resource. I mean, you'd be foolish not to show up at those. And we'll be at a few of those workouts, at least one at each location, with Blueseventy suits to demo. So if you've never swam in a wetsuit or you're thinking about upgrading your wetsuit, it's a great opportunity to get in a suit and see how they feel.
I think Blueseventy is going to be at our Oxnard event on the weekend of September 20th, 21st. And then we have 2 clinics, October 19th and 20th in that range, and at LA and Newport Dunes. So yeah, we will definitely have product on hand at those 3 events this year. Which sort of comes into the last thing. I think you should be the one to announce. We've been teasing people and the podcast with a promotional deal. Do you want to cover that?
Yeah, so we've already been pushing the fact that all of the participants get a 20% discount at Blueseventy.com, but I was really excited to work with you on a deal where from September 1st to September 15th, anybody who buys a Blueseventy wetsuit using the California Triathlon code gets a free race entry to any of the 3 triathlons that you're putting on this fall. So you buy the wetsuit, we'll email you a code, and you could register for a race for free.
That is very generous. So that deal, again, is a free race when you buy a wetsuit. So you can buy a Blueseventy wetsuit and get a free race entry to Caltri Events Oxnard, LA, Newport, or LA race. Even includes a 70.3 mile distance, which is a heck of a deal because that race is $200 right now. So you can score a $200 race entry when you buy a $250 wetsuit.
Yeah, that's a phenomenal deal. So you just have to use the code Caltri Events when you're checking out at Blueseventy.com.
Fantastic. And when you do that, use the Caltri Events. I believe there's a 20% discount on that?
Yes, exactly.
So a as an example, $250 suit, 20% off. Not a good math guy.
That's correct.
So yeah, you could get a $200 race for a $200 suit. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. We had Blueseventy at last year's race, but this year you're going to see that at all of our races, obviously the swim caps. And so we hope to spread the word about your product in Southern California. John, thanks again for joining us for another heap and helping of California Triathlon Soup. Anything else before we go into the sunset?
Yeah, I mean, keep doing what you're doing. It's great the way you're bringing people into the sport. You and I have talked a lot about kind of the old guard or the powers that be, thinking they're doing well, but actually at the end of the day, kind of limiting triathlon participation and kind of discouraging people from getting into the sport. So your entry fees and the outreach that you're doing are just really good. So I'm really excited to be working with you guys, and thank you for having having me on your podcast.
John, we really appreciate it. Thanks again to John Duquette, the CEO, owner, product guru, and good friend of Cal Tri Events and California Triathlon. This was another edition of California Triathlon Soup.
Cheers.